Get ready for another SEO-to-Go special brought to you courtesy of leading UK search conference SMX London. On the show, I have two of the top keynote speakers. Indeed, they are recognized as leading voices in their specialized fields. One SEO and the other PPC. Yes, it's Mike King and Frederick Vallaeys. And what a super interesting conversation this is about the current state of our industry with all its changes and what to expect next. You don't want to miss it, so let's jump right on in. As the digital marketing industry, in particular for us, search, continues to evolve into a new era of artificial intelligence and machine learning, it seems so hard just to get a bead on what will appear on the horizon next. Well, I can tell you from personal experience, this is not just another shift along the industry timeline. It's more like when the industry was brand new and there was a dearth of information about this new medium called the World Wide Web and the technology that surrounded it. But current advances that are completely transformative should come as no surprise. This year, think about this, the web is 36 years old. Now imagine that it was a computer at that age, or a piece of software at that age, even a car. After 36 years, you'd expect to see some pretty dramatic changes in technology and design. So the fact is, at the dawning of this new era, it's the end of the World Wide Web as we've known it and used it, as end user data is already beginning to show. And for me, as we do touch on this in this conversation, the industry is shifting its focus from algorithms to thinking machines. Now, I've been studying information retrieval science for a long time and watching the evolution of the science as it applies to search engine optimization and pay-per-click advertising. And if the entire industry had been watching the science too, there would have been less of a surprise at the meteoric rise of AI and machine learning as the driving force for the future of marketing and, well, just about everything else in our day-to-day lives. Fortunately, this SEO-to-Go special, as usual, brings you some excellent insights in a truly interesting conversation about where we are now and where we're going next. And I don't mean in where we're going next in years, I mean in a matter of months. So let's meet my fabulous guests. And here we are again with my special panel of superstar guests. The theme for this particular show is based a lot around SMX London, which is coming around. So you're going to be able to get a chance to meet all of the experts live in person. There might be a couple of spoiler alerts here. I don't know. We have three experts to talk about the show, but we'll also talk about the industry in general, where we are now. And actually, just as we were chatting before we came live, I was actually saying whatever we talk about now might bear no relevance to what happens in September when we get there. There are so many changes taking place. Anyway, to meet my guests now, I always say this, being an American citizen, but a British gentleman. Ladies first, as usual. So Sandra Finley. Sandra, how nice to have you along.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
Yeah, and we were just talking again off air just before we came on. You and I have known each other for a very long time. I have
It
known your husband, Matt Finley, great guy, since I think probably the very first SES in Munich. What year would that have been?
oh God, that probably was around 2002 or 3. Is that
Exactly,
possible?
yes.
Yeah.
In the early days when the conference was younger and I was a damn sight younger as well. Anyway, you have been running successfully all the shows in Germany, now in the UK as well. And so obviously you're an expert in the field. And unlike our other two guys here, experts in specific areas, your general field is to understand the industry as a whole and how do we bring them all together. So that's what we're looking forward to in September. There's a lot of stuff that people can find out about you online in social media because you're fairly active out there, Sandra. But go ahead, think of something that we don't know about you. What can you tell us that we couldn't find on social media?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess I'm fairly active on social media, but mainly about work. Um, uh, and I guess you probably wouldn't think that I do spend a decent amount of time in the kitchen because I love cooking. I just love cooking, and I'm a total nutrition, fan. So I do annoy my entire family with healthy eating.
Wow. And you live
And
in a
and we
fabulous place just outside of Munich. So I guess there's all kinds of fabulous local produce that you can get, yeah?
Yes, yes, we live 20K outside of Munich in the south. It's a beautiful area, lot of green, lot of yeah, like I can get a lot of local produce, quite right. And we have a dog, so I hope that he's not gonna make himself known, but he might if someone rings the doorbell. There's nothing I can do about it. And yeah, so it's fairly nice here. So I do travel quite a lot as well, not as much, not even close as much as you have, Mike and Fred and Mike are traveling these days, but I do always love coming home. So yeah.
Oh, good. So when we're all together at the next SMX, whether it's in, well, not in London, but certainly in Munich, it's everybody back to your place for dinner, yes?
Yes, exactly. Everybody come to my house for dinner. That would be great. But no, honestly, on maybe I add one more thing about the, trying to eat healthily. We do cater actually vegetarian at all of the European SMX events by now. And it's not because I think everybody must eat vegetarian. It's just that the mass catering, we found, this has to be from not such good sources. So this is why we have decided that we're gonna go veggie.
Okay, can I just say on
Um,
that? So I've been to SMX many, many times, and one of the first times I was looking at the menus, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds vegetarian." This one, I'm not quite sure what's in it. That must be the non-vegetarian option. So I had that, and I didn't think it was vegetarian, and it was delicious. And then at the end, Sandra told me everything here is vegetarian. So I was like, "That's pretty amazing." So well done on that.
yeah,
Wow. So there you are. You
thank
go to
you.
that conference, Fred, and not only do you get to give and impart all of this great information to the audience is actually getting fitter at the same time. So, Fred, we've known each other for a long time, Frederick Vallaeys. We met, you were with Google at the time, and certainly back in the day. And I can see in the back your old Google shirt, your old uniform there.
Can you see this thing? So there's my Google uniform, and then we were speaking about SES. So here's one of the original. I don't know if you can see it. Here, I'm going to come closer to the camera and go a little bit off script here, but if that renders, that's well,
Wow. What year is that from?
I don't know. I think
Yeah.
my first SES would have been probably 2004, 2005.
Yeah. And so you were the evangelist for PPC, for paid search back then. And I seem to remember that both you and Andrew Goodman were on nearly every panel together.
Yeah,
You were
that's right.
the tag team for PPC back at the time.
Some of the OGs. But yeah, I basically, so I was at Google in 2002 is when I joined because I'm from Belgium, so I speak Dutch, and they needed someone to help translate AdWords into Dutch. So I went
Wow.
and did that. But then I found there was a bit of a gap at conferences where a lot of the executives from Google would go and speak, but they had a hard time connecting the dots between what they were selling and how the product actually worked. Because remember, it's software, it's buggy, it doesn't always do what it's supposed to do. But I had been using Google AdWords myself, and so I was able to go out there and explain how it really worked to people. And I thought that was kind of a fun role. And so I went to my boss, Cheryl at the time, and I said, "Hey, can I go and do more of this? And can I call myself the Google AdWords evangelist?" And so I created that role. And it got me a lot of frequent flyer miles, and it got me to meet a lot of cool people like Sandra and you, Mike. And I just really enjoyed doing it. And then I also took all of that product feedback back to the product teams at Google. So that was my role. And then nowadays I run Optimizer to fix some of the things that Google isn't fixing themselves.
And you're one of the founders of Optimizer, yes?
Yes, I'm one of the three co-founders.
Yeah. How long has that been going?
So that's been 13 years now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Quite some time. Well, it's great to have you, but go ahead. As I do ask everybody, Frederick, we can find a lot about you online. What do we not know about you?
So the thing that I probably haven't talked about quite so much is that I have a passion for tequila and mezcal, and so recently I've made investments in a tequila startup, OTP, and we're bringing a really nice, very aged tequila to the market, and hopefully we'll get people to like it, and we'll see some success with that brand. So that's called OTP Tequilas, and then I also helped out a friend of mine who runs La Legenda Mezcal. It's a mezcal that tastes like tequila, so that's another company that I've gotten involved in. So besides PPC, it's tequila and mezcal.
Wow.
Should we do a tasting at SMX London?
Yeah, let's see how the tariffs are for me bringing a bunch of tequila to London. But yes, I would love to.
Fair point.
So the next time that you're on the show, you have to have a bottle so you can show us. In fact,
Yeah.
send me one and I'll show it, and then I'll finish drinking it for you. But
A little
that's very
early. I'm in
interesting.
California here, so if this was a 5 o'clock in the afternoon show, maybe I'd bring the bottle. But I got my coffee instead.
The people watching don't know what time we filmed it.
That's right. I
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
that, Mike.
Sandra has an excuse. She's drinking gin and tonic, but she's in Munich at the moment, so that's fine. She can get away with it. Great to have you along, Fred. Thanks very much for joining us. And back again, he is the industry superstar. Mike King is back. Mike, you and I were just chatting off air since you were on the first show. Thanks very much for joining us for that. And it's great because it's been so successful since then. But you've said that you've already done about 20 conferences this year.
Yeah, it's been a busy year. I've seen a lot of places that I've never seen before. Like for instance, I spoke in Nigeria for the first time this year. So yeah, it's been a really busy year.
Wow. So we already know that you belong into the rap industry. You've had great success there. You're one of the top 3 freestyle rappers, but that's only one part of your life. What else is there about you that we may not know?
I mean, I'm a millennial. Everything there is to know about me is on the internet. But what's lesser known is that the first job I ever had was at Microsoft. I was 14 doing like a high school internship. And that really just like kicked off my web developer career. So I don't know how many people know that about me.
Yeah, well, they all do now. And like I say, great to have you along. Lots to talk about. We've got to talk about the conference, state of the industry. A couple of places that I wanted to start. I just wanted to have a look at the headliners there, you and Fred. So Mike, I'm going to start with you actually. Leading the AI conversation for SEO and search at large. That means that you have a session where you can talk about anything you like within the in the
Yeah.
industry. I mean, you
Yeah.
say that the industry's changing so much from where we are now to where we're going to be. What do you think you'll be talking about in that session?
I mean, it's a great title, and I'm glad that Sandra landed on that for me because that's exactly what it is. There's no way to know exactly what we will be talking about 4 months from now. So from my perspective, I think a lot of the basis of things that we've been discussing, things like vector embeddings and the move to neural retrieval and things of that nature, are all going to come up in this session. It's just like, what are going to be the latest innovations on top of that? And so we've learned a lot more about how Google is using vector embeddings with their new Movera paper that came out a few months ago. So that information is just really informing a lot of what we need to know about optimizing for AI mode, optimizing for AI overviews. I did a real deep dive into a variety of patents about a couple weeks ago to talk about specifically these are the things that Google is doing with AI mode. And so we've also built some tools on the back of that because as we, have been discussing for the last couple of years, there's just this huge gap in the SEO software versus what it is that Google is doing. And so what we're doing at iPull Rank is digging into that in more detail and then building things that our SEO community can use. So I built a tool called Qforia, which is really about the whole query fan out concept. For anyone that's watching that doesn't know what that is, Google doesn't just take the explicit query the user puts in and then collect a bunch of documents based on that. They run it could be dozens of synthetic queries in the background to pull additional documents and then pull passages from those to then build a synthesized response. That's how you get these answers in both AI overviews and AI mode. And so I built this tool, and I also open sourced it so that other people in our industry can learn from it and build on top of it. And that's exactly what's happening. A lot of people are forking my code and then building new things. And so there's also some internal things that we've built that we haven't shared. And so by the time SMX London comes around, I'll have more of that stuff to share as well. So it's just a really exciting time where, as you said when we met, that there's just such a dearth of good information right now. And so we're trying to do our best to like cut through that and bring more valuable things to the table that people can actually learn from and use to move the industry forward.
So I kind of get a little bit frustrated, as you know, in the sense that when the industry first started, there was a dearth of information. People couldn't find anything. It was difficult, and everybody was trying to. I spent a lot of time, as you know, I've been a member of ACM, so I've been studying information retrieval for a long time. I wrote the first book on SEO and the underlying science of information retrieval 23 years ago. I am getting more interest in that book now, Michael, than I was getting 23 years ago. In fact, here's an interesting thing, and this is why I get a little frustrated, because I don't think that the SEO industry has spent enough time looking at the science of information retrieval, which is what Google is trying to conquer in the first place, you know? But this actually just came up recently. I wrote something for a big name marketing publication, and I wrote these words: getting systems to learn behavior rules from experience in some environment is still an expanding area of AI research. In natural language, a system may learn syntactic rules from example sentences. In vision, a system may learn to recognize some object given some example images. And in expert systems, rules may be learned from example cases. So there's obvious interest at search engines in using machine learning methods. And you know, when I wrote that, I was a little disappointed that it got so little reaction. And when I say it now, you might think it shouldn't deserve any attention at this time. But the fact of the matter is, I wrote that 19 years ago. I wrote it 19 years ago in a ClickZ column. And like I say, everybody's rushing around like headless chickens going, oh, AI and stuff. What are we going to do? If you'd followed the science, and now they're going to have to depend on you with your next book. But
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of like carrying the torch for what you started, more or less, right? Because like my whole book is about digging into IR, understanding how it works, digging into AI, understanding all of that, and then bringing all those components together to understand how modern search actually works. So, anyone that's been following me for the last, like, I don't know, however long I've been doing this, has will see the common thread of that in all of my work because my background is in computer science. But yeah, I completely agree with you. That's definitely the big thing that's missing. I think most SEOs are basically just like power users of Google. They don't necessarily understand like the underlying science. And so that's why they can't really catch up to what's actually going on, and they're still just assuming things based on the mental model of what they understand. But things have just changed in such a significant way that you have to understand these things because there isn't enough SEO information out there about what to do.
so, fingers crossed, it will be coming out soon. I know it's one of those things that becomes like, painting a bridge over a large river. You start at one end, by the time you get it finished, you need to go back and start the other end again. But at some point, you have to say, oh, let it rot for a little while and then we'll come back and clean it up, That's great. So, Fred, great to have you along. First time on the show. Again, keywords and landing pages are dead. Welcome to the era of prompt-driven PPC. That sounds fairly threatening. What's that about?
Yeah, well, is that a catchy session right there that you would want to attend? It is, right?
We're all going to die.
So no, but I think it really builds on top of what Mike you've been saying. Both of the mics have been saying. But yeah, I mean, basically, like all this technology is causing a huge shift in how things are done. And we often think about it from the perspective of the search engine, how they are doing things. But what we're also really seeing is that this is such a different experience for the consumer. Um, and it's a better experience, right? Like nobody honestly likes digging through a bunch of links and clicking and like researching and summarizing. So we all really like what's happening with AI and what it's able to do for us. And so whether you're a fan or not of AI mode, and I mean, a lot of people still say like it makes a lot of mistakes, it hallucinates, but like let's face it, when we looked at Google 20 years ago, their index was being refreshed every couple of months. Like things were out of date, they were making mistakes in what they were showing us. But technology always gets better, right? And I think we're seeing something that is just a better experience for the consumer. So we're not going to go backwards from here on out. Now, one of the things that you need to connect this with is that also for the first time in more than 20 years, Google, which is a company that was fundamentally built on the notion of keywords, is no longer looking at keywords when it comes to advertising. And Mike alluded to it. He said, like, it's the synthetic keyword or the synthetic, whatever. I think he used a different word than keyword, but it's a synthetic keyword that Google is saying this is what the prompt was, this is what that kind of equates to in our existing keyword driven system. But I think the reality is the keyword is no longer the key thing, it is the prompt, and that is fundamentally different. And so Google is putting in these stopgap measures to connect the ad system to how consumers are now starting to do their searches. But we're going to have to, so something's going to change, right? Google is going to build something different that's going to be even more capable than what they're doing today. And so that's what I want to talk about and just sort of lay out some of the technology that's driving this so that people can understand how it works and they can start to formulate their own vision of what that might mean for the future. Because like both of you Mikes have been saying as well, like I don't think even Google knows what the solution is for the future. And so we all need to come together as an industry and sort of figure this out. What can we do with this additional data? And one thing I want to talk a lot about is the memory aspect of AI mode and large language models. And that's such a huge change. And that's one of the things that makes the keyword less relevant, right? Because the memory of the AI just knows so much more about you than Google does today. And that makes the keyword much less useful in terms of showing the right ad at the right time to the right user.
So I think I am working under a banner from an interesting book that I read, which is called Moving from Algorithms to Thinking Machines. And I wish the entire industry would understand that, because it's such an entirely different thing. And much as I get that, you have to have a little bit of a tease in the headline for your session, thinking about the end user, the change in the end user, we still keep using the word search. So you used, keywords and prompts in there. There is a big difference between a query and a prompt. They're not the same thing. And the end user is doing that without even thinking about it. I mean, a query especially is a question. So we talked about Google and search engines as the answer machines, okay? A query is basically a question. This is something I don't need to know, or could you just confirm I'm right? A prompt is actually an instruction. It's do something for me. It's a different kind of thing. And I've talked about the difference between search and service many times, and it's coming much closer together. So again, I think that the industry has to understand that the audience, the consumer behavior is changing in the way that they satisfy their information need. And therefore, you have to be there, whether it's a search engine or a large language model or even a social media site, whatever it is, you have to be a bit more multimodal in satisfying that information need. Sandra, let's just talk about the conference for a second, because I saw you posted something recently about the name of the conference, okay? Search Marketing Expo. And is that a dated name? I don't know whether you know this or anybody else, but it was me who donated that domain name to Third
Oh,
Dawn Media as a gift so that you could get your conference off the ground. And that's true, because when Danny and you all were starting to put that conference together and decided you were going to call it Search Marketing Expo, you went to buy the domain name and discovered that I had owned it for about a year.
look
Anyway,
at that.
enough of that history. Do we have to change the name of a conference, or given that it has this name, SMX, and what it stands for, and yet when we look at the content that you're putting together, yes, it has some of the evergreen SEO stuff in there, but all the more, it's looking at what we call modern information retrieval. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, I mean, I'm trying to look at it a lot also from the consumer perspective. Yeah, I'm the person, I'm still looking for the same things. I just go about it very differently, but I'm still looking for it. I'm still searching for it. It's just I approach it very differently these days, and we need to adjust to that. But I think the conference and the content of the conference, that's more relevant than ever. And we are so lucky because we work with people like Fred and Mike who are at the forefront of this. You know, it's like, you know, 10 years ago, you guys were doing, you know, pure, what we would say now, pure PPC or pure SEO, and but you evolve with it. But the concept of what we're trying to achieve has not changed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things, again, that you become more aware of, particularly if you are one of the speakers at the conferences, is that there is more that you can impart to people personally in a conversation with them, and then having a group of people take whatever this problem is and then start and work on solving it. So it's nice
Yeah.
that you can do things online, but there's still nothing like bumping into people in the corridor, having lunch with them, meet them in the bar.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think it's an enormous opportunity for people to be at a conference and get to chat to someone like, you know, Fred and Mike. And there's so many more great people we have there because there's nothing like a direct conversation. But the other thing we do, and this is also like something that has changed or evolved with conferences from my perspective at least, is that the exchange is so very valuable. So we always talk about networking as a big part of the conferences, but we're really trying to support that a lot more than we used to. So we have roundtable discussions where we say, look, okay, there's going to be 12 people. You sit down at this table, and this is the one topic that you all worry about. And then they exchange their challenges, solutions, opinions, whatever. And if you go out and don't have your solution, but at least you have the feeling, okay, everybody's in the same boat, we have the same problems, that's already helpful, isn't it? And we also do some fun stuff, like we have one roundtable, which is where people just should exchange their best prompts. I know this is today my best prompt, and tomorrow it's probably not worth anything. Who knows? But this is a lot of stuff that you just cannot get online. And this is something that happens at conferences. Never mind that, you know, it's like you, if you had a good chat with Mike, you might be able to, I don't know, send him a message and ask him for something. Mike's gonna hate me for saying that, but it is the personal connections that just really build the community.
Change your email address, Mike.
Yeah, I would not ever give it to anyone, you know that.
Yeah, and as for those prompts, I wonder how many of those could be published. So what happened at conferences a long time ago when I was first starting to program conferences, that you had the two tracks really. That was the paid search guys were here, the SEO guys were there, and very rarely did they cross over, except in the bar, maybe later in the evening. But I want to ask Mike and Fred, the relationship between the paid search guys and the SEO guys, even down to organizations where they haven't even been sharing data or information with each other because they live in different pockets within an organization. We really have to come together even more now, and specifically at a conference. So the last two conferences that I was at, there were a couple of sessions that I went into, and what everybody was talking about was AI and what's happening in search. But I don't think you needed to be a paid search session or an SEO session. You just need to have to know what the heck is going on in the industry. And I do believe that integrated marketing is going to become so much more important. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've never understood how organizations keep organic and paid search so separate. Because to the user is one experience, right? Like users are like, I perform my query, I want my answer. I don't care which pocket of the page it comes from. And I think that's just going to get more true as we see AI mode mature, because of course Google is introducing advertising in there. And so it's going to be far more difficult for the organic folks to get into these systems because it requires like a more omni-channel or omni-media focus on this. And it's going to take time for people to embrace that because they're used to SEO just being, meta tags, links, and 500 word blog post with a stock photo. So it's going to take time for SEOs to be able to be like, hey, we got to make this video, or we want to do this audio thing, and so on. So I think the interplay between paid and organic is going to to become more close, because at the end of the day, the organic folks have a better understanding of, like, what do people actually want to do. Like, they have a more clear understanding of how the funnel works, and the bigger picture component of it, because we've primarily gone after those upper funnel queries, whereas on the paid side it's really been more focused on that lower funnel. And for the people that do paid across like brand versus performance, I think they have a good understanding of things as well, because they know that growing your brand creates more opportunity in search as well. But whole point here is that having a bigger picture understanding of this and how everything plays together is going to make search more effective going into this AI area, rather than like taking the siloed approach that a lot of people have done historically.
Yeah, I think it has to be a little bit of both, right? So, like Mike is saying, it's sort of that bigger picture, the holistic view of how things are interacting. And now that there's so much change with AI, we can certainly learn across PPC from what SEO is doing. But then I think there is also a purpose to having these separate tracks at conferences, because ultimately the technical implementation of some of the things that we do is very different. And I see very few PPC experts who are also like really good SEO experts, because the PPC expert expects to change a toggle and see results within 5 minutes. The SEO expert has more of that long-term view, right? And so it's just different trades, basically. But there's certainly a lot of learning. Now, the other components of this would be influencer marketing, video marketing, social media marketing. And I know Sandra and SMX do a lot of those other conferences as well. But those are the other pieces, and we see these things becoming more closely integrated as well. From Google, for example, so they now have a way to find influencers who will talk about your product, and then you get the measurements inside of the Google ad system. All right. And so that's just enabling you to do something which is sort of PPC, but also kind of like influencer marketing. And by the way, influencer marketing sometimes is also organic. So all of that starts to come together. And what I think is going to be really interesting is, as AI agents start to do more of these actual tactical implementations, um, it is really like Mike is saying about what is the strategy, what is it we're trying to achieve as a business, and then maybe at some point in the next couple of years we'll have AI agents actually go and execute against that vision, and do all of the pulling all the levers that are necessary to achieve those results.
So on both sides, the AI thing kind of came as a bit of a surprise, well, given that I said I was talking about it 23 years ago when I first mentioned machine learning in that first book, and 19 years ago talking about these changes as they come around. So they have been used at Google, but the first place that people seemed to notice machine learning was on the paid search side. And to be honest, most of the people that I know that were 100% paid search, they would say, I hate machine learning. I hate it. Just like SEOs are saying, I hate the AI overview now. But given that machine learning has been a part of the paid search side, and yeah, like everything else, it got off to a bit of a crooked start. But has it made the paid search area more effective now?
Yeah, for sure. And I think what you're referencing there is probably quality score. So I was on the team at Google, and that was one of the early implementations of machine learning. And like the AI hallucinations that we're seeing now, and like the original index of Google not being refreshed very often, the machine learning models that drove quality score took about 4 to 6 weeks to be trained. And then we'd have to test them. We'd have to validate that it was making good decisions. And then oftentimes it didn't make all the right decisions. So then we have to figure out, do we rebuild the model? Do we take another 6 weeks to train it up again? Or do we sort of make manual exceptions along the way? And these were the frustrations, right? Because you get advertisers who, I mean, a classic example that I'll share was Netflix was advertising on the keyword Netflix, but the quality score system thought they had low quality score and low relevance on their own brand name. And it was like, what the hell is going on, right? Like, why is that? Like, how could anything be more relevant than their own brand name? But what was happening was the SEO teams at Netflix were doing such a good job of optimizing their organic rankings. And so people were predominantly clicking on the organic result instead of the ad result. And so the machine learning system was like, well, it doesn't look like people love the ads for Netflix when somebody types in the keyword Netflix. So we're going to give that a low quality score. So these were the things that we had to keep tweaking and fighting, and ultimately, of course, when we then talked to the Netflix team and said, well, it's okay, guys, like you get free clicks instead of having to pay for them, then all of a sudden they were okay with what was happening and the low quality score. But yeah, so that was the original days of quality score. And nowadays, obviously, the systems have evolved quite a bit. There's automated bidding, there's performance max campaigns, there's keywordless advertising. And I think by and large, it's making advertising more accessible for the average company. So even if you don't have a marketing team, you can still get pretty decent results from Google Ads without putting in a lot of effort, without having to take a crash course. And by the way, I am doing a course on PPC at SMX. So if you want to attend, you can, but you don't need to anymore. You can just get good results from all of this AI. Now, what I think a lot about is how do you unlevel the playing field? How do you get better results as a professional marketer by knowing how this AI and machine learning works? And how do you sort of feed it better data? How do you take a little bit more advantage to get you that extra 5%, 10% performance?
So you mentioned this new agentic world that we're moving into, and it is going to make a difference. And a part of that is what I was talking about earlier on, the big difference between search and service. They're entirely different things, you know? But I shared a video. I hope you had time to take a look at it. But you know what's coming soon. But I shared a video with you guys from the CEO of Visa explaining that their agent is ready to go and they're going to be working with some of the top tech companies in the globe. So now you'll have your Visa card and it will actually be an agent that you give autonomy to, and off it goes and does all of your shopping for you. Maybe it's only going to get the stuff that you don't want, you know, toilet paper, toothbrush, whatever it is. I don't know. It's going to go and do that. But it leads to two interesting areas. One is that beginning part of the search is actually going to be done by an agent. How is that going to change behavior if that's doing the searching at the very beginning for you and then taking it right to the purchase? The other thing is that I can see that there is going to be an erosion of the power of brand when these agents begin. And I'll explain that more in a moment. But I just from the three of you, if you did take a look at that, and you probably already were aware that this agentic thing was coming around, how is that effectively going to change consumer behavior, which will change the industry?
And maybe I'll start on that if I may. So, because that kind of leads into my second portion of my keynote, which is the notion that landing pages are dead. Um, and so, Mike, what you're saying, if Visa does the shopping for you, then obviously who cares about a landing page in the current sense of what that means to us, right? That the landing page is there to get the user from the click to the final convincing that they should buy this product or this service. Now, today what is happening is through prompts, through conversations, the consumer is becoming much more informed about what it is they will find on the landing page by the time they get there. And there's data from Microsoft that shows this. So if you are so well informed, the only reason you go to a landing page today in this new world would be to do the checkout. You don't care about everything else that's on the page. But then that leads to the question of ultimately, why do we even have to go to the landing page to do the checkout? Like the Visa vision is the thing that it should be. It should be the agent, after I've had a conversation with it, where I just tell the agent, I like it, you've convinced me, deliver it to my door tomorrow. And they should go to the checkout page. They should do the transaction, right? And so that changes how people search. That changes the keyword. That also changes the notion of what a landing page needs to do. And now I do think for higher consideration purchases, those landing pages will still play a more significant role. But you might also start looking at showroom ads for Microsoft, which are basically crafting custom landing pages, if you will, on the fly based on who that consumer is, and then allowing them to do the transaction. So there's so much change happening within this. I think it's going to be a pretty crazy world.
Sandra, you said before that you're basing a lot of what is happening within, organizing the content for the industry, that looking at yourself as the end user, as the consumer. What are your thoughts? I mean, are you happy that you wake up in the morning and your Visa card has been running around all over the world buying stuff?
I'd be broke if the Visa card will buy everything I want. So let's not do that.
They
No, but
didn't
I
say
think,
that they would give you unlimited credit, though.
well, who's gonna pay the bill is still the question. Yeah, so no, but I think this is what is so interesting. So my desire for these products, and let it be, like Fred said, high purchase, like if I want to buy an expensive bag or something, it's very different than if I just need to make sure that I've got enough kitchen towels. Yeah, it's a very different equation, but it's still my desire or my need is still the same. It's just I go about it very differently. But for you who supply the kitchen towels or the expensive bag, you need to make sure that the agent has you on the radar. And that's what we do. That's what we deliver, is like how, and now it's not, now I need to be in the AI overviews at Google. It's not so important to be the fifth link anymore. Like, correct me if I'm talking nonsense. You guys are the experts. But from my perspective, that has not changed. It's just all different now. But we in
End
the industry,
users have
and
always
you
been.
guys, sorry, you guys notice you've been in the industry for such a long time. We always had significant changes. This is bigger, granted, but it is still a change, and we need to adapt to it. That's
Yeah.
that's at least
But
my
users have
perspective on
always
it.
been lazy. This is the
Yeah,
problem. And we're all
of course.
users, and we don't want to click 5 links or go to 5 different
Yeah.
pages to get an answer. We just want the answer now. And the whole industry goes, oh, that's a 0 click thing. But the end user is absolutely thrilled with all of this.
For sure,
Yeah,
but
let's
you
not
also,
forget.
sorry.
No, you go ahead, Sandra.
No, I just wanted to put the element of trust in there as well, which I think this is why it's not going to be totally different tomorrow. I think it's still a process, because if I, like the visa agent, that's great, but I also need to want to know that it's actually going to do what I want it to do in my framework. Maybe I can just program that. I haven't seen it, but I think that's also something that needs to be, in the whole consideration box.
So I had a conversation with another leading figure in the industry, and we'll just leave that there. But it was an interesting conversation because it really had me thinking, given that I've been looking at brand consumer behavior, trying to connect it with information retrieval in all of this time. And the way that I'm going to frame this is that one thing that, given that I've been living here in the US for 20 years, I still don't know how the healthcare system works. And I find many other
It
American
doesn't.
don't know. But there is one thing that I had to come to terms with, and this is connected, so stay with me here, is that when a brand new drug comes out, and I say to my doctor, I want this drug, then it's so expensive to get this particular drug that I've got to have this copay. It's massive. And then what I'm really waiting for is for the generic version. And when the generic version comes out, it's so much cheaper than the brand version. So I immediately go for the generic. Now, I wanted to put this in terms of artificial intelligence, which is what my friend was saying to me. And he said, when we go agentic, the agent is likely to do just that. It's likely to look at certain products that you want to purchase. And yes, there is a brand over here that is this much, but there's a generic version of it over here that has exactly the same content, exactly the same things. So I'll go for the generic version as opposed to the brand version, because an agent is never going to give a shit about brand.
Yeah, but I would also say, like, that comes to drugs, right? And if it comes to what shampoo am I going to use in my shower by myself where nobody's watching me, like, who cares what the brand is? But when it comes to the car that I drive, I mean, there's still a level of prestige attached to certain brands. So am I going to buy a Chinese brand which may have a great car, or am I going to choose the Ferrari because I want to show off, right? I think in those scenarios, the agent should be smart enough to understand what it is that motivates people. And I think ultimately, hopefully, we still retain some level of control where I can say, like, honestly, I don't care what I drive around in and how people perceive me as a result of that. But you see all of this influencer marketing, and people clearly do aspire to have these lifestyles and these brands and these things that they're no better products, but they have a brand association. And so again, but what you're leading into is very interesting, and like, how does the agent understand those things? And so I would bring that back to, so I wear this B computer device. So this is basically, it's listening to all my conversations throughout the day, just kind of like if you have a Zoom meeting and you're recording, but this does it for my whole life. And so this thing has some understanding about who is Fred, like what does Fred talk to his friends about. Does it seem like Fred is the kind of guy who would care about a certain brand when it comes to running gear or cars or medication, right? Maybe I've expressed in conversations with friends that, I mean, I really do trust these, like the cutting edge tech science, and I really want the brand name drug. And so then when the agent is on its mission to go and find me, whether it's the drugs or the new car, it knows what I want and it should pull in the right thing that makes sense to me. And I think that's what's so interesting, is that every individual has so much nuance to them, and that nuance has been really hard to connect for advertisers and for companies through whether it be SEO or PPC, because we've been missing that layer of understanding. But these things are really bringing in that new layer. And again, that's to my point. And like the keyword as the best expression of what somebody wants, that is fundamentally dead, because we have all of this other great stuff that we all of a sudden now know about.
Yeah, what I've always said about search is if you knew what you wanted, you wouldn't need a search engine. That's why I
Exactly.
use it to begin with. But again, it is kind of interesting and in that I don't believe for one second that the agent is going to take on the role of establishing who I am and my prestige within a community because of the certain clothes or the car that I drive. Like you say, you know, you might tell people that you use expensive shampoo in your bathroom, but only when you steal it from Four Seasons. No, but seriously, for that kind of thing, that you really couldn't care about. But if I'm a toothpaste brand or a shampoo brand, then I would care about that kind of thing. I mean, I don't think that you can have an agent that takes away all of those things. However, it is, and it's a hard one because I was only thinking about this over the weekend in a conversation that I was having with a friend. As I say, it's a hard one to figure out, but I've always said, Mike, that with SEO, the beauty of it is that people start information. People wake up and they have a problem and they need to solve it. And the earlier that you can connect with somebody on that journey when they're trying to solve a problem, and you help them solve the problem at the earliest stage of the journey, by the time you get to the checkout, there's already a little bit of brand affinity that's going on because you've helped them at that start of the journey. But if the end user doesn't have to do that anymore, then there are going to be a lot less searches, correct?
Yeah, but what you're describing is you're teaching people how to think about a thing, right? Like someone is like, "Oh, I want to solve this problem." They come across your content and they're like, "Okay, now I think about it this way because I learned it here." And then inherently you have that brand affinity. But like you're saying, agents now getting away with of that. Like it used to be that, the web was this marketplace between you and a whole bunch of different companies, and their market was, their websites. But now agents are disconnecting that and they're interpreting this information. However, where I kind of disagree with what you said is that, like you said, it is still a function of IR, and the signals that impact IR are typically very impacted by the presence of a brand, right? Like if we're thinking about the basic things that are used by Google to rank websites, whether you're talking about the relevance of content, the user signals, the authority measures in the form of links and so on, brands are the ones that have the ability to impact that. You are going to click on something because you recognize it. Being a brand impacts that. Having the ability to create a ton of relevant content, typically the brands have the money and the wherewithal to make that happen. And then also people have a higher likelihood of covering and or linking to things that they recognize. So again, having a brand will have an impact on what the agents ultimately see, because the underlying idea of ranking is fundamentally impacted by things that brands create. Now, the other aspect of this, of it being like, well, the user may not care about the brand as much, I think that is also to some degree true when you're thinking about buying things, because Amazon has effectively trained us to get the more generic thing. Like, it used to be that you're like, hey, I want to get the Nike compression pants. Now you just go on Amazon and you're like, okay, who has the $5 compression pants? Because you're used to things from Amazon being a certain level of quality, or you want it to get to you faster. So there's more at play here than just the brand itself, and there's also more at play than just, is it a generic item that I could just get. And so there are signals that the agents are going to take in, and then there's going to be what the personal behavior is. So when we think about what Visa is doing, the data sources available give you the granularity of what people are purchasing. Like, you can buy purchase behavior data from these different credit card companies. And so, as an example, these like big box stores like your Targets in the States and Best Buys and things like that, you can get the data on this person with this card buys these things. And I think the personalization aspect is going to come from that layer of data. Like, if you know that I buy milk every 3 weeks and I buy these things when I buy milk, well, then you can have a reasonably accurate prediction of what it is that I'm going to be after on a certain time scale. And so I think that users are going to want to lean into those sorts of ideas where it's like, I don't want to necessarily have to subscribe to things. But if there are other data sources that we can pull in, like if you know what's in my refrigerator and you can automatically order me these things, great. Like, that would be the use case for someone like me, for an agent attached to my Visa card. But the idea of like, oh, okay, well, it's your birthday, I'm gonna automatically buy you a Gucci bag, like, I don't think that is realistic for most people. So I think that there are different levels to what this can be. But the base level is gonna be like more tied to what Fred was just talking about. Like, he has a device on him which captures information from all his conversations, which can then ultimately be plugged into other data sources down the line. The same way that people's like, Apple Health app is feeding other apps across their ecosystem. I think we're going to have more of that, where all these sorts of things get tied together and you do have a more personalized real world experience.
So I was just thinking when you were describing the milk in the fridge thing to begin with. In 1999, Seth Godin wrote a classic book called Permission Marketing, and he explained that back in 1999 that they would be able to do that. I think the brand thing, I don't think we disagree too much on anything there. The only problem that we've got, and I tend to find this with the SEO industry, your logo is not your brand. A brand is an emotional experience, okay? It's something that you feel, kind of thing. So you have to become that. And I think, again, with the agent actually begins to understand you and do things on your behalf based on your own behavior. So I don't think you're letting go of everything, but I just do think that one of the lines that the CEO at Visa, sorry, I forgot this name, one of the things that he said is that the agent goes out and looks at all of this inventory, all of this available inventory, and picks out the best and gets the best price for you. That agent is going to do something with all of that inventory in a period of minutes, whereas it would probably take you a whole day to go through all of that. So, the agent is going to serve a purpose there. I think that's another one to be continued, though. So, just going back to the show, because we are here courtesy of SMX in London, and I'm sure that I've been to the show many times before. People do travel from the US and other parts of Europe to come in. Apart from the sessions that you're doing yourself, guys, what else are you looking forward to? Is there anything at the show, any particular speaker or session that you're thinking, I can't do them all, but I'm not missing this one?
I'm gonna check out what Nava Hopkins is up to. So she used to work for Hamian Optimizer. She's now moved on to Microsoft, but she always has an interesting take on how things work, and having that insight from the number two player in search, or well, actually, YouTube is probably his number two player, but kind of having those insights from Microsoft and what they're working on is going to be very interesting. And it has been fascinating because I think for a long time, Microsoft has been so similar to Google, but now with AI coming in and their efforts with Copilot, it is actually becoming more of its own thing. And they're trying different things from Google. And I think one point that I made in one of my books was the agencies that win are the ones who experiment the fastest and get results the fastest. And so to do experiments, you obviously need to have variety and different things you're testing. And so for that reason, I'm kind of excited to see what Microsoft is coming out with that's different from Google, because that basically helps us with the experimentation and trying new things and maybe finding something that works better in this new age of AI.
Yeah, for me, I can't miss Andy Crestodina. Like he's always such a great speaker. He's our opening keynote. And then Matthew Brown, like I've always learned a ton from him. So I'm excited to see what he has going on because I haven't seen him speak in years.
So yeah, Nava was on a panel that I was on, the final panel that I did at SMX Advanced in Boston. And we all had to be from the movie Back to the Future in that session. It was a lot of fun.
Who
So,
were
Sandra,
you?
on the fun side of hanging out at conferences, what about anybody watching who's just been thinking about coming in, and some great information already from the guys and from yourself. But just for hanging out, what events have you got? Cocktail sessions? What else is going on?
Yeah, so of course, like at the end of day one, conference day, we always have like a get together in the exhibit area, which is always nice to just like, let the day go by and have a good chat with everyone. But we also do have a pub quiz, so couldn't get more typical London. And that's gonna be, all about SEO, PPC, AI, whatever, everything. It's a courtesy of IRA, so I hope that then everyone after the first conference stage is, pops over the street and goes to one of these fabulous pubs that they do have in London. And we're gonna have a pub quiz. Yeah. So that we did that last year. It was huge fun. It was so much fun that we're now even doing it in Munich. And yeah, so that should be good.
I'll do another little plug here for SMX, right? But I think the master classes, so that's the day before the actual conference. It's a really great way. So I usually have about 20 people attending my sessions. And so obviously, like the ratio of one educator to 20 people, and you have them for the whole day, it's a fantastic time to really just go into discussions and have some exploration of the deeper topics that you might not be able to get in these bigger keynote sessions. The keynotes are fantastic, but if you really want that one-on-one time, the master classes are a fantastic venue.
Yeah.
So
And
it's not much of a secret in the industry, I don't think, but I'll just jump in and say this, having been around for a while. But trying to get speak to your boss at work and speak to the CMO or the VP marketing and tell them, I need to go to a conference in London, hang out with some of my buddies. Nobody's going to pay for that. I'm sorry, the company's not paying for you to go and get drunk at a conference. However, if you do go in and tell them there's training and I will get a certificate, that is the best. So if you're wondering how to convince your boss while you're watching this, dear viewer, tell him it's about the training, not the conference.
exactly. So you can add this on. We have four. I might actually add that. So one with Fred, fantastic opportunity to spend an entire day with Fred and get so much knowledge. We have one on how to create and distribute videos. That's Phil Nottingham, who's, I don't know, everybody who knows him, like he is the guy for videos. And we have one with Niels Roymans for about ad scripting, and again, I would say he's the guy for scripts. And then we also, of course, have one workshop about the complete SEO AI agent with Fred's help. So plenty to choose from to add on to the conference.
Well, this has been fantastic again, as usual. A lot of information being shared. Let's just do the final part, Sandra. The date, the venue, and the location. So it's in London. It's in September from
18th to 19th September, and the workshops are the day before on the 17th. And we're close to Victoria Station, at a very nice venue there, super central, very easy to get to and from. We do have a block in the hotel as well. I always find it easiest to stay in a conference hotel, and then also, everyone ends up at the bar, which is also nice, more networking. And yeah, you can come the weekend before, have a long weekend in London.
Yep, I've always done that myself. Stay in the conference hotel. That's where you get to hang out most. Well, that
Yeah.
is absolutely fantastic. Thank you all for coming in. It's always a pleasure to have leading experts like you give your time. I do not take it for granted. And for those of you who were thinking about going to the conference, there's a lot more that you can learn when you get there hanging out with these guys in person. And that's it for this one. Thank you so much once again to Sandra, Mike, and Fred for giving us their time and thoughts on the industry. And special thanks to SMX London for bringing this show together. It's a must-attend show in the UK. Tickets are still available at the best price as long as you get them before August 1st. And please do me a favor. If you enjoyed the show, give it a nice big like and be sure to subscribe so you never miss another information-packed show. Do take care, and I'm much looking forward to you joining me on the next show. See you then.